The News Media Bargaining Code is a law designed to have large technology platforms that operate in Australia pay local news publishers for the news content made available or linked on their platforms. The law's definition of news is broad, including content that reports, investigates or explains current issues or events of public significance for Australians at a local, regional or national level. Quote 3 originating in April 2020. When the Australian government asked the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission to begin drafting it, it achieved broad support in the Australian Parliament but staunch opposition from Facebook and Google. In response, on the 18th of February 2021, Facebook blocked Australian users from sharing or viewing news content on its platform. The Australian government strongly criticised the move, saying it demonstrated the immense market power of these digital social giants. A few days later, after the Australian government introduced last-minute changes to the bill, Facebook reached an agreement with the Australian government and said it would restore news to Australian users in the coming days. The bill seeks to address a bargaining power imbalance that exists between digital platforms and Australian news businesses, which the ACCC identified in its Digital Platforms Inquiry report. The Australian government hopes it will ensure that news media businesses are fairly remunerated for the content they generate, helping to sustain public interest journalism in Australia. It would require stakeholders to agree to a dollar value of the news content distributed by the platforms, pay that revenue to registered news publishers, and agree to final offer arbitration in the case of a dispute between a publisher and a platform on the value of the news content. The bill defined making content available by, if the content is reproduced on the service, or is otherwise placed on the service, or if a link to the content or an extract of the content is provided on the service. Nine Network estimated this amount to be $432 million. The code would also require digital platforms give 28 days notice to Australian news publishers about algorithm changes that could affect links to their news content. Proponents of the law argue that the profitability of social media companies is partly attributable to the fact that users can receive news updates even when they do not view the ads on the page of the original publisher. The code was supported by media companies based outside Australia: The Guardian, The Daily Mail, and News Corp. The bill was also supported by the Australian Press Council. The bill also saw support from public broadcasters, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and the Special Broadcasting Service, following their amended inclusion in the remuneration stages of the code. The bill also saw support from Microsoft, which issued a statement suggesting that the code would be made to work with its search engine Bing. This followed a comment from Google Australia which said the company would pull out of the Australian market if the code was enacted. Smaller journalistic entities including the New Daily Crikey and the Country Press Association have argued that the code favours dominant media companies at the expense of smaller publishers. Google criticized the idea as unfeasible, especially the restrictions on when they can change the algorithms for how various sources are ranked. The policy director of the Australian Taxpayers Alliance called the measure protectionism. Other notable technologists including World Wide Web inventor Tim Berners-Lee, journalism professor Jeff Jarvis, New York Times technology journalist Kara Swisher and strategy writer Ben Thompson have criticized the code for being technically unworkable. Former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, who is a prominent activist against News Corp, has argued that the code has been designed to favor the company's properties. Crikey political editor Bernard Keane criticized Australian mainstream media for allegedly systematically misleading audiences over the code and the legislation. In December 2017, the Turnbull government directed the ACCC to conduct an inquiry into competition in media and advertising services markets, focusing in large part on Google and Facebook. The final report published in July 2019 made several conclusions regarding the state of competition in the news and media landscape. Reduced production of particular types of news and journalism, including local government and local court reporting, which are important for the healthy functioning of the democratic process. There is not yet any indication of a business model that can effectively replace the advertiser model, which has historically funded the production of these types of journalism in Australia. In April 2020, the Morrison government directed the ACCC to develop a mandatory code to address bargaining power imbalances between digital play